Brothers and sisters in the Dhamma, we are here today to venerate the three jewels. We commit our faith to the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, and our lives as members of the community he established. We uphold the path shown to us and we vow to learn, to follow, and to share it with others for as long as this life lasts. Please make the 5-point prostration twice. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. To the Buddha, our teacher, to the Dhamma, his teachings, and to the Sangha, the order of his disciples, we go for refuge. Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dhammāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Saṅghāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tutiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tutiyampi Dhammāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tutiyampi Saṅghāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Dhammāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Saṅghāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Let us observe the 5 precepts. Pāṇātipāta Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. Adinādana Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. Kāmesu Miccacara Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. Musavada Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. Sura Meraya Majjapamadatthana Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. Let us now recollect the 9 great qualities of the Buddha, the 6 characteristics of the Dhamma, and the 9 attributes of the Sangha. Itipiso bhagava arahang samma sambuddho Vijja charana sampanno sugato lokavidu Anuttaro purisa dhammasarati Satta deva manusana Buddho bhagavati Swakato bhagavata dhammo sanditiko akaliko ehipasiko opanayiko pacatam veditabo vinyuhiti. Supatipanno bhagavato sāvaka sangho Ujjupatipanno bhagavato sāvaka sangho Nyaya patipanno bhagavato sāvaka sangho Samici patipanno bhagavato sāvaka sangho Yaditam cattari purisa yugani Atta purisa punggala esa bhagavato sāvaka sangho ahuneyo pahuneyo dakineyo anjali karaniyo Anuttarang punya ketang lokasati. Let us pay homage to the three objects of veneration. Vandami cetiyang sabang sappatane supatititang saririka datu mahabodhim buddha rupang sakalang sada. Let us pay homage to the Bodhi tree. Yasa mule nisino va sappari vijayang aka pato sappa nyutang satta vande tang bodhipadapang ime ete mahabodhi lokanate na pujita aham pite namasami bodhi raja namatute. Let us make our offerings of flowers, lights, incense, and water to the Buddha. Ganna sarapaditena dipena tamadamsina Tiloka dipang sambodang pujayami tamonudang Vanna ganda guno petang etang kusuma santating Pujayami muninda sa siripada saroruhe Pujemi buddhang kusumena nena punena metena ca hotu mokang Popang milayati yatta idang me kayo tata yati vinasa bawang Ganda sambara yutena dupena hang sugadina Puja ye puja niyang tang puja bacana mutamang Adiwase tuno bante paniyang parikapitang Anukampang upadaya patigan hatumutamang. Let us share the merits that we have accumulated through this Buddha Puja and through our other meritorious acts with the deities. Let us also recall to mind our loved ones, relatives, and friends who have passed away. May these merits that we have accumulated accrue to their well-being. Akasata chabumata devanaga mahidika punyang tang anumoditwa cirang rakantu loka sasanang Eta wata ca amhehi sambatang punya sampadang Sabbe dewa anumodantu sabba sampati siddhya Idam me nyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo Idam me nyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo Idam me nyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. By the power of our merits, may we aspire towards the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Idam me punyang asawa kaya wahang hotu Idam me punyang nibbana sa pacayo hotu Imang no punya bagam sabba satanam dema Imang no punya bagam sabba satanam dema Imang no punya bhagam sabba satanam dema. Let us ask for forgiveness from the three jewels. Kayena vacha cittena pamadena maya katang acayang kamma me bante buri panya tathagata. Kayena vacha cittena pamadena maya katang acayang kamma me dhamma sandittika akalika. Kayena vacha cittena pamadena maya katang acayang kamma me sangha supatipana anuttara. Let us call upon the Devas and invoke the power of the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha to shield us from all sicknesses and evil influences. Sabbitiyo vivajantu sabba rogo vinasatu mate bhavatwantarayo sukhi dika yuko bhava. Bhavatu sabba manggalang rakantu sabba devata sabba bhutanubhavena sada soti bhavantu te. Bhavatu sabba manggalang rakantu sabba devata sabba dhammanubhavena sada soti bhavantu te. Bhavatu sabba manggalang rakantu sabba devata sabba sanghanubhavena sada soti bhavantu te. Nakataya kabhutanang papagaha nivarana paritasanubhavena hantu te sang upadawe. Nakataya kabhutanang papagaha nivarana paritasanubhavena hantu te sang upadawe. Nakataya kabhutanang papagaha nivarana paritasanubhavena hantu te sang upadawe. Dedication of place for practice. We dedicate this place to the three jewels, to the Buddha, the fully enlightened one, to the Dhamma, the teaching which we follow, to the Sangha, the Blessed One's disciples. Here may no idle word be spoken, here may no unwholesome thoughts disturb our minds. To the observance of the five precepts, we dedicate this place. To the practice of meditation, we dedicate this place. To the development of wisdom, we dedicate this place. To the attainment of enlightenment, we dedicate this place. For the happiness of all beings, we dedicate this place. For the benefit of all beings, we dedicate this place. With restraint in body, speech, and mind, we dedicate this place. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Please make the 5-point prostration 3 times.
various publications in Malaysia as well as overseas, and he has to date edited 9 books on Buddhism, including 3-volume Kesri Dhammananda Centenary published by Nalanda Buddhist Society in 2018. Brother Benny has graduated with a Bachelor of Arts with Honours in Education from USM, University Science Malaysia, and a Master of Public Administration from I now would like to respectfully invite Brother Benny to deliver his Dhamma sharing. Over to you, Brother Benny.
Thank you, Sean.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
Okay, great. Let me do some.
Yep. No worries.
Screen. Okay.
Maybe.
Screen sharing.
All right, we can see your screen perfectly clear.
Maybe I should get the full screen.
Yes.
Okay.
That would be great.
All right.
Over
Good. Thank you very much. Good morning again, and I hope everybody is well and happy. So before I start today's Dhamma talk, let us all compose our minds and check our intentions, why we are here this morning. And remember the 4 important aspects when listening to a Dhamma talk. Okay. Remember the words that we hear, not the person speaking it. Secondly, reflect on the meaning of the words that we hear. Thirdly, to analyze the meaning, whether they're definitive truth or provisional truth. And finally, to remember to put into practice what we have learned. Okay? So that's from the Ornament of Clear Realizations, and I think it's a very good reminder for all of us. Okay, so today the talk will be based on a Mahā Kammavibhaṅga Sutta. So this discourse is the Sutta 136. If you have a copy of this book, of Petaling Jaya, translated by Bhikkhu Nyanamoli and Bhikkhu Bodhi. And this text shows some of the complexities of karma and its results. Now, basically, this sutta starts with a strange view expressed by a confused wanderer named Potaliputta and an equally confused answer given by a monk, Samiti. It was then that subsequently Samiti went to see Venerable Ananda, and from there the Buddha gave his great exposition of kamma, right? So this discourse is based on what the Buddha has explained. Now, basically it talks about 4 types of people, right? Now, before we understand this sutta, I think it's important just to understand the concept of karma. I think by now we all understand that karma means intentional action, and karma can manifest itself immediately, the next life, and in the future lives. Right? So based on this understanding, it helps us to understand the complexity of karma as propounded by the Buddha in this greater discourse on karma. All right? Now, if you remember, the previous week we were looking at another sutta called the Chula Kammavibhaṅga Sutta, that's called the Lesser Discourse on Karma. When we discussed that sutta the previous week, we had the impression that karma operates in a rather simplistic manner, in a very linear manner. So today we were going to understand that karma is much more complex than just that. So as usual, we have, like all suttas in the Nikayas, the beginning starts with, "Thus have I heard." So on one occasion, the Blessed One was living at Rajagaha in the bamboo grove, the squirrel's sanctuary. Now on that occasion, Varasamiti was living in a forest hut. So Varasamiti was one of those Buddhist monks. And then there was the wanderer, Potaliputta, came to see Venerable Samiti, and they exchanged greetings. And Venerable the wanderer Potaliputta then asked some questions of Venerable Samiti. He says, "I heard and learned this from the recluse Gautama's own lips." The recluse Gautama here refers to the Buddha. Potaliputta, being not a follower or a disciple of the Buddha, did not regard the Buddha as the Buddha. He just called him the recluse Gautamas. right? So this is what he said. I heard and learned this from the recluse Gautama's own lips. Bodily action is vain. Verbal action is vain. Only mental action is real. And that there is that attainment on entering which one does not feel anything at all. So this is the question Pataliputta asks Venerable Samiti. And this is what he said. He said he heard from the Buddha's own lips. I mean, he heard directly from the Buddha that bodily action is vain, verbal action is vain, only mental action is real. So what this means is that Pataliputta is saying bodily action does not bear fruits. And so is verbal action. They do not bear fruits. So the only action that bears fruits is mental action. So is this true? So this is what Pataliputta said to Samiti. And Pataliputta also said there is that attainment on entering which one does not feel anything at all. And here I think Pataliputta was referring to the cessation of perception and feeling, Sanya, Vedana, Nirodha, right? Which some texts regard as the 9 formless jhanas. Okay, but that's not the main part of this sutta, right? So let's go on. Samiti then asked Pataliputta not to misrepresent the Buddha. So when Samiti heard what Pataliputta said, he said, "Oh, please, that's not what the Buddha said. Please do not misrepresent him." Pataliputta then asked Samiti, all right, having done an intentional action by way of body, speech, and mind, what does one feel? So Samiti replied that one feels suffering. So after Pataliputta had left, Venerable Samiti went to Venerable Ananda and reported to him the entire conversation. So apparently, when Venerable Samiti replied to Pataliputta's questions, Pataliputta remained silent and left. And when this happened, Venerable Samiti decided to go and visit Venerable Ananda and report to him the entire conversation. Venerable Ananda then said the conversation should be told to the Buddha. So both of them decided to visit the Buddha, where Ananda reported the conversation between Venerable Samiti and Pataliputta. Now, then you find that here we come to the part, para 5 and 6, if you have a copy of the text. Buddha told Venerable Ananda that he did not recall ever having seen Pataliputta. So how else would he have spoken with Pataliputta? So which means that Pataliputta was not actually telling the truth. But the Buddha said Pataliputta's questions should have been analyzed before being answered. I think I mentioned to you previously that in the Panta Sutta, another discourse the Buddha gave, that there are 4 ways of answering questions. Sometimes a question when asked can be answered categorically, in other words, with a yes or a no. Sometimes a question needs to be analyzed. And sometimes a question needs to be counter-asked. In other words, you pose the question with a counter-question. And finally, the 4th way is you just set the question aside or you remain silent. So here the Samiti would have just answered categorically, but the Buddha expected this question to be analyzed. And so happened that in the discourse, then there was another monk by the name of Venerable Udayin, who perhaps tried to defend Venerable Samiti by saying, oh, maybe he was referring to the principle that whatever is felt is suffering. Okay? So that gives the impression that everything that we experience is dukkha, is suffering. So we'll see what the Buddha has got to say about this. Now, in this discourse, Venerable Udayin only appears once. After that, he did not appear again, just as Pataliputta did not figure subsequently in the discourse. So let's see what is the Buddha's reply. So here the Buddha explained the types of feelings. Now, in the Buddhist definition of feeling, of Vedana, the Buddha describes feeling as primarily of 3 types, which is pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling, and neutral feeling. So the Buddhist definition of feeling in the teachings is pretty straightforward. Okay, only 3 types: pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. So here is what the Buddha explains in para 6. So here the Buddha says an intentional action. Remember, we say that karma is intention. Yeah? So an intentional action by body, speech, or mind, whose result is pleasant, one feels pleasure. Likewise, an intentional action by body, speech, or mind, whose result is painful, one feels pain. And an intentional action by body, speech, or mind, whose result is to be felt as neither pain nor pleasure, one has feeling of neither pain nor pleasure, or neutral feeling. So this is the Buddha's explanation. So here, as you can see, in response to Potaliputta's questions about, is it that all that we feel, all that is felt is suffering? All right. So it's not the case, because it depends on what type of feeling. So whether it is an intentional feeling by body, speech, or mind, which is pleasant, then of course the result is pleasure. If it is painful, then one feels pain. And likewise, if it's a neutral feeling, then one gets a neutral. If intention felt is neutral, then the feeling is neutral. So the Buddha analyzed the question and explained it in these 3 ways. Now, the crux of this sutta is about the 4 types of person, all right? Where it is said the evildoer goes to hell, the evildoer goes to heaven, the good person goes to heaven, the good person goes to hell. So maybe based on our understanding of karma, we always have this belief that if you do unwholesome actions, you end up in a state of deprivation or a woeful state. While that is very much true, but there are circumstances which explains otherwise. So this discourse explains about the complexities of karma. So here, remember, the Buddha starts by talking about the 4 types of persons. Someone who have done evil action is reborn in hell in his next life, and an evil person or a person who performs unwholesome actions in his next life, he is reborn in heaven. Likewise, the 3rd person, a good person, that means someone who performs wholesome actions, he goes to heaven upon death. Upon death, when he is reborn. Finally, the good person, someone who performs wholesome actions, when he passes away, the next life, he is reborn in the hell realms. Okay. So here the Buddha explains each of it. Buddha says, if one kills living beings, steals, engages in sexual misconduct, lies, speaks maliciously, speaks harshly, gossips, is covetous, has ill will and hold wrong views, on dissolution of the body after death, he is reborn in a woeful state, the state of deprivation, including hells. So here, the Buddha is talking about what is called the 10 unwholesome actions. Now, if you look at this sutta itself, the Buddha is referring to the 10 unwholesome actions which is committed through body, through the speech, and through the mind. Unwholesome actions committed through the body will be killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. Unwholesome actions committed through speech will be lying, slander, harsh speech, and idle chatter. And unwholesome actions committed through the mind will be 3. There will be covetousness, ill will, and wrong view. So here in the first part of para 8, Buddha says if one commits any of these 10 unwholesome actions through body, speech, or mind, then on dissolution of the body after death. So here the Buddha is very precise, saying on dissolution of the body. That means after the body has disintegrated and death takes place, he is reborn in a woeful state. I think in my earlier talk, I mentioned that in Buddhist cosmology, we talks about 31 planes of existence, which is then collapsed into the 6 realms. The realms of the hungry ghosts, the realm of the animals, the realm of the demons, the realm of the hells. All right, 4. And then you have the human realm, and then you have the heavenly realms. So there are 6. So one who commits any of these 10 unwholesome actions, the text explains that one is reborn in a woeful state. And then if one kills living beings, so the same thing again, he commits all these 10 unwholesome actions, all right? And then when he is, after death, on dissolution of the body, he is reborn in a happy state, or including the heavens. Then, so we will just stop at that, and then we go on to the next one. They're the good doer, all right? Someone who does not perform any of the 10 unwholesome actions, someone who abstains from killing living beings. So again, the 10 unwholesome actions. Well, you have the reverse. So you have the 10 wholesome actions. So if one performs the 10 wholesome actions, which is the reverse of what is mentioned in the 10 unwholesome actions, then upon dissolution of the body, after death, he is reborn in a happy state. So it could also be reborn in the heavens. And then the second part, if one abstains from killing living beings, in others, if one abstains from performing any of the 10 unwholesome actions, on dissolution of the body after death, he is reborn in an unhappy state, including a woeful state. So this is the good person. All right. So you have 2 pairs now. You have 1 pair, a pair of a person who performs evil actions. When he passes away, he's reborn in an unhappy state. But likewise, you also have a person who performs unwholesome actions, the 10 unwholesome actions. Upon dissolution of the body after death, is reborn in a happy state. So likewise, when it comes to a good doer, someone who abstains from killing all sentient beings, killing living beings, from stealing, sexual misconduct, and so on, when he passes away, he is reborn in a happy state. Maybe that is something we can all easily understand. But the Buddha also says, sometimes when this person abstains from killing living beings, steals, engages sexual misconduct, and so on, upon dissolution of the body after death, he is reborn in an unhappy state. All right? So you have this apparently contradictory situation of karma. Now, then the Buddha in Para 9 explains that this is actually what happens to a mystic or someone who has got deep concentration. And this person who has got deep concentration, one of these persons, there are four persons here, right? 4 persons, and one of them sees a vision of an evil doer suffering in hell. So he confirms that what he heard about moral causality. So he says, evil doers always go to hell. And then this becomes a dogma. It becomes dogmatic. He says, only this is true, anything else is wrong. Okay, so there's one mystic who sees a vision, in others through his high meditative concentration. He sees a person who performs the 10 unwholesome actions, and upon dissolution of the body, and when rebirth takes place, he's reborn in hell. So he said, this confirms the nature of moral causality. You do bad, you'll be reborn in hell. And because he perceived this in his meditation, he says, evildoers always go to hell. And when this happens, it becomes a dogma. He holds strong to this view. Only this is true. Anything else is wrong. So let's see what the Buddha has got to say about this. Now, in Para 9, the Buddha explains clearly, yeah? Buddha explains that how one who attains psychic power due to high concentration sees a bad person after death being reborn in a woeful state. Then this person who have attained psychic power because of his high concentration, high meditation, he says, indeed, there are evil actions and there is a result of misconduct. In other words, there's a result for all the unwholesome actions. Why? Because he said, I saw a person who broke all the 10 unwholesome, who performed all the 10 unwholesome actions, held wrong views, and I see that after his death, he's reborn in a woeful state. He's reborn even in hell. So as a result of that, this person, this mystic, he becomes very dogmatic, and he says, only this is true. Nothing else is correct. So anything else is wrong. So this is one mystic who was able to see living beings performing unwholesome actions, and upon death, these persons are reborn in the woeful state. Then another mystic, Buddha explains how one who has attained psychic power due to high concentrations, he sees a bad person after death being reborn in a happy state. So this person, this second mystic, he also had got high psychic powers, high concentration powers, and then he noticed that this person has performed unwholesome actions. He commits all the 10 unwholesome actions. And when death takes place, when he is reborn, he realized that this person is born in a happy state, even born in heaven. Then he says, there are no such thing as evil actions. There is no such thing as evil or misconduct. Why? Because he said he saw a person who performs all these 10 unwholesome actions, and after death, he's reborn in heaven. So this becomes a dogma in him. So this view of his hardened, and he says, only this is true, nothing else is true. So in other words, this second mistake, because when he saw a person performing unwholesome actions, and as a result of these unwholesome actions, instead of being born in the hell realms, he is reborn in the happy realms, even in heaven. So he says, there's no such thing as good begets good, bad begets good. So there's no such thing as karma. And this becomes a dogma in him, a view in him, and he says, only this is true, anything else is wrong. So that's the second person. So the third person, I think you can understand the sequence now. Now the Buddha explained that there's a third person, a third mystic, or a third person who has deep psychic power, high concentration. Now he sees a good person, in others, a person who does not perform any of the 10 unwholesome actions, but instead perform the 10 wholesome actions, who keeps his precepts well, and after death, he is born in a happy state. Then he said, there are indeed good actions. There are results to good conduct. Why? Because he says in his meditative state, he saw a person who abstains from killing living beings, who practices all the good wholesome actions, and after death, he found that this person is born in a happy state, even in the heavens. So this view also hardened in him, and he became dogmatic in his sense. Only this is true. Anything else is wrong. So this is the third person. All right. Remember the first two persons, first two mystics, has got to do with evil actions. So now we look at the third person, the mystic who saw someone who has performed wholesome actions, and as a result of that action, is reborn in a wholesome state. And his conclusion is, yes, there is such thing as results of good actions, because I see beings being reborn in the heavens after they're performing good actions. But this then translated into a dogma, into something that he holds strongly, and he says, only this is true, anything else is wrong. So then Buddha goes on to the fourth person. Now this is a good person who, despite his good performances, his good practices, his good observance of the 10 wholesome actions, upon dissolution of the body, he is reborn in a woeful state, even in hell. So here, this fourth mystic, this fourth person who has psychic powers, who was able to attain high jhanas, have high concentrations, now he sees a good person. After that, he finds that this good person is reborn in an unhappy state. Then he says, come on, there can't be good results for good conduct then, because this good person that I saw, after death, he's reborn in the woeful states, even in hell. So then it becomes a dogma, it becomes a view, and he holds steadfast to this view. He holds it very strongly, and he says, only this is true, anything else is wrong. So here in Para 12, the Buddha concludes the four types of person, or rather the four types of person. In other words, the first pair, someone who has performed unwholesome actions. First, he is reborn in a woeful state. Secondly, another person who has performed unwholesome actions, he is reborn in a wholesome place. He is born in a happy state. And then then the Buddha mentions about the second pair of persons, the person who has performed wholesome actions. He performed the 10 wholesome actions. He abstains from the 10 unwholesome actions. One of them is reborn in a happy state, maybe in heavens. And then the second good doer, despite his wholesome actions, upon death, when he passes away, he is reborn in the unwholesome actions. He's reborn in unwholesome state, maybe in health. So these four pairs of person. So why did the Buddha explain this? So you see here, the Buddha is analyzing how karma takes place. The Buddha is analyzing the complexities of karma. So let's see how the Buddha exposition now. So again, there will be four from para 13 onwards. So here, the Buddha says, from what the mystic have mentioned, right? The first four mystics that we mentioned early on. So the Buddha says, if someone were to say, bad actions have bad results. In other words, unwholesome actions have unwholesome results. In other words, you perform an unwholesome actions, you'll be reborn in a woeful state. After that, you'll be reborn in a woeful state. Buddha says, I grant this. In other words, the Buddha agrees with this statement that bad actions have bad results. Then it comes to the second statement, Buddha's exposition. But if someone were to say, every bad person after death will definitely be reborn in a woeful state, the Buddha says, he does not grant it. Which means he disagrees with that statement that every bad person after death will definitely be reborn in a woeful. Maybe if the mystic had said, some people after death, some bad person, some person after performing unwholesome action after death will be reborn in the woeful state, probably the Buddha would agree. Buddha would then agree. But here, if you say every bad person after death will definitely be reborn in the woeful state, the Buddha said he disagreed in this sutta. And those who agree, and those who know, thus know rightly. Buddha also said he disagreed. So in other words, the Buddha disagreed. If someone says that every bad person after death will definitely be reborn in a woeful state, people who subscribe to this belief thinks that this is right, and then the Buddha would disagree with that. So that's why the first part, this is true, all else is not true. Buddha also disagreed. Okay, so this is about bad actions. Now, the second exposition regarding the views of the four mystics which we discussed earlier on is that the mystics, some of the mystics would believe that no bad actions, no bad results. In other words, there's no such thing as you perform unwholesome actions, you will have unwholesome results. So the Buddha says he disagrees with this statement that there's no bad actions, there's no bad results. Which means that if you do bad actions, there will be bad results. Later on, we will understand this better. So the second line, the Buddha says in para 14, a bad person after death can be reborn in a happy state. Is it possible? Yes, the Buddha agrees. Later, the Buddha explains why. So here, please note, a bad person after death can be reborn in a happy state. The Buddha is not saying every bad person after death will be reborn in a happy state. All right? So if you say every bad person will be reborn in a happy state, the Buddha disagrees. All right, let's go back to the second sentence to make sure we are clear. A bad person after death can be reborn in a happy state. Yes, Buddha agrees. Buddha in the text says, I grant this. But if you say every bad person will be reborn in a happy state, the Buddha disagrees. And if you say only this is true, all else is false, the Buddha also disagrees. Okay, so this is the second exposition. Now the third one is regarding good actions, good results. Remember the first pair is about bad actions, right? So I'm sure you can see the pattern now. Yeah. So here the Buddha talks about one of the mystics who says that good actions result in good results. In other words, a good person is reborn in a happy state. The Buddha says, yes, I agree with that. You perform wholesome actions, you will experience wholesome results. So a good person, a person who observes the precepts, a person who observes the 10 wholesome actions, upon dissolution of the body, upon death, he will be reborn in a happy state. Buddha says that's possible. Buddha says, I agree with that. But if you say every good person will be reborn in a happy state, the Buddha says, I disagree. And those who know thus know rightly. Buddha says, I also disagree. This is true, all else is not true. The Buddha also said, I disagree. Okay, so the third situation is about good actions. And then the fourth exposition, one of the mystics would have said, there's no such thing as good actions, there's no such thing as good results. Why? Because the mystic saw that in his meditation state of mind, he saw this person performing good actions, and then at the end of his life, he's reborn in a woeful state. So he says, there's no such thing as good actions, there's no such thing as good results. So did the Buddha agree with this? No. The Buddha said, I do not grant this. In other words, Buddha disagreed. So then the second line, the Buddha says, a good person can be reborn in a woeful state. Yes, a good person, it is possible, can be reborn in a woeful state. But if you say that every good person will be reborn in a woeful state, the Buddha says, I disagree. All right? I disagree. And those who know us know rightly. This is true. All else is not true. The Buddha also disagrees. So here the Buddha disagrees with what the mystic saw, all right, in his high states of meditation. So remember, there are four. Now, here the Buddha explains in Para 17. The bad person is reborn in woeful state because either he did an evil action to be felt as painful, or later he did an evil action to be felt as painful at a time, or at the time of death, he had wrong views. And since he has killed living beings, again, the 10 unwholesome actions, he will experience the result of that either here and now, in his next rebirth, or in some subsequent existence. So Para 17 is a very important passage. So let me read that again. So it says, the person who performs unwholesome actions, the person who breaks all the 10 unwholesome actions, he is reborn in the woeful state because of three things. Either he did an evil action early on, or later he did an evil action, or at the time of death, he held wrong views. Okay, so because he committed these 10 unwholesome actions and he held wrong views, he experienced the result of that action, of that karma, either here and now, in other words, in this very life itself, in his next life, or in some subsequent existence. Now, here what it means is that karma, you can experience the actions of your karma here and now, in this very life itself, in your next life, or in some subsequent. Okay, so that's the evildoer. So three things: he has done a bad deed in his past life, he has done a bad deed in this life, he had a wrong view at the time of death. So these are the three factors. So remember, we had many lives in the past. So the bad deeds that we performed in the past, they would have taken friction in this life itself. Okay, so a very powerful negative or unwholesome action we did in our past life finally ripens in this life itself, or it ripens in our next life. Okay. Now the evildoer in heaven. So the bad person after death is reborn in a happy state. Why? So you would imagine he's a bad person in this life. You see him doing a lot of negative things, unwholesome things. But upon death, he is reborn in a happy state. So the Buddha explains, because early on in his past life, he had done good actions, and those good actions are ripening now, or in his next life. And later, he did a good action to be felt as pleasant. So which means, even in this very life itself, what we see are just the negative actions. But the positive actions that he did intermittently, we did not see. So we have the conclusion that this person only did bad things in this life. But we did not know whether he had also done good things in this life. And because of those good things that he did in this life, those good things may be more powerful than the evil things that he did. Right? Or at the time of death, he had right view. he could have been a bad person all his life, but just before he was about to pass away, he came in contact with the Dhamma, he had right view. So because of that, he's reborn in a happy state. But since he has here killed living beings and held wrong view, he will experience the result of that either here and now, or in his next birth, or in some future existence. Now, here what it also means is that even if this bad person is reborn in a happy state in the next rebirth, if the bad karma that he has performed far exceeds the wholesome actions that he has performed, then the next life will be short. He will have a lot of suffering in his next life because there will not be enough supportive karma in his next life. Okay, so this is another aspect of karma, which has got the reproductive karma by function. In other words, we are reborn because of our reproductive karma. What supports us in our next life is a supportive karma. But if we do not have enough of supportive karma, then we will have a lot of counteractive karma. In other words, the negative actions that we perform will counteract our positive karma that causes us the rebirth. And maybe we have short life. That is the function of what is called destructive karma. So if you remember the Mahā Kammavibhaṅga Sutta in our previous talk, why some beings, when they are reborn as a human, they have short life, or they are always having health problems, they have a lot of suffering, or they are reborn in a very miserable and wretched state because they did not have supportive karma. And if their life is very short, it's because of another karma called destructive karma. All right, so that explained in another discourse, but not in this discourse. Okay, so evil doer is reborn in heaven. He has done a good deed in this past life. He has done a good deed in this life at some stage. So in this life, intermittently, besides the unwholesome actions, he has also done wholesome actions. And at the point of death, he had right view. So the evil doer reborn in heaven. So likewise, the next pair is just the reverse. All right, so I'll just go through very quickly. So the good person is reborn in a happy state because either earlier he did a good action, or later he did a good action, or at the time of death, he had right view. So after death, he is reborn in a happy state. And since he has abstained from killing living beings and so on, and he had right view, he would experience the result of that either here and now, in this very life, or in his next rebirth, or is in some subsequent existence. So there's a good person, the person who has performed wholesome actions is reborn in heaven. So likewise, so here in summarized form, he's done a good deed in his past life, he's done a good deed in his life, and he has right view at the time of death. So the fourth aspects will be, the good person is reborn in a woeful state because either earlier he did an unwholesome action, and later he did an unwholesome action, and at the time of death, he had a wrong view. So this person may have been perceived as someone who is doing a lot of good actions, but at the point of death, he is reborn in a woeful state. But since he is here, since he has abstained from killing living beings, he has right view, he will experience the result either here and now, or in his next birth, or is in some subsequent existence. So even if he's reborn in the hell realms or in the woeful states, all right, maybe you will be reborn in those states in a very short period of time. And after that, because of the propensity of his good karma, you'll be reborn maybe in a subsequent existence in a pleasant state. Okay, so that's paragraph 20. So he's done a bad deed in past life, he's done a bad deed in this life at some stage, and he had wrong view at the death. So as a result, he's reborn in a woeful state. So here, the Buddha concludes by talking about what is called the 4 types of karma. So here the Buddha says, Ananda, there is action that is incapable of good result and appears incapable. There is action that is incapable of good result that appears capable. There is action that is capable of good result and appears capable. And there's action that is capable of good result and appears incapable. So you see, the Buddha spent a lot of detail, was very meticulous in analyzing the 4 types of karma. So I'll just put it in the table form. So what does the Buddha mean when he says is incapable or inoperative and appears inoperative? Okay, here in the text itself, the Buddha did not explain, but in the commentaries, it says that the person, for example, an inoperative and appears inoperative. So it is said that an example is the person kills living beings and is reborn in hell. So his action is incapable of good result. Why? Because it is unwholesome. And it appears incapable because since he is reborn in hell, it seems to be the cause for his rebirth. Right? So that's the first. The second is when he says incapable but appears capable. The second is when one kills living beings and is reborn in a heavenly realm. His action apparently would seem to be incapable of good results. Why? Because it is unwholesome. Yet it appears capable because he ends up in heaven. Therefore, to the outside mystics, outside recluses and Brahmins, it seems to be the cause for his rebirth in heaven. So it is inoperative, yet it appears operative. The third is regarding the good person. The third person, he abstains from killing living beings and he is reborn in heaven. So his action is capable, isn't it? It means capable of good results. And he's reborn in heaven. So it is capable. It also appears to be the cause for rebirth. And likewise, the same pattern here. The fourth is when he abstains from killing. That means he did not perform any of the unwholesome actions and is reborn in a woeful state. So his action is capable, is operative of good actions because it is wholesome. Yet it appears incapable. Why? Because he is reborn in an unwholesome state. But this is because of some past bad karma. Right? So these 4 are what the Buddha explains as the 4 types of karma. So one has to read this, reflect on it, and analyze it. One cannot just read it like one reads a novel or a storybook. So one has to really go line by line, analyze it, and see what the Buddha meant by incapable appears incapable, incapable appears capable, capable appears capable, and capable appears incapable. All right. So each one of it refers to 4 scenarios. So the Buddha calls it. So these are the 4 types of karma. So how karma works? So this I just give a brief summary here. So the Buddha explains karma has notions of invariability. So karma is invariable. Thus, just to say that the evildoer goes to hell is too simple, too simplistic. Why? Because the human minds are complex and comprise many kinds of karma. Even in one lifetime, as some may influence the last moment when karma is made prior to death, which in turn is the basis for the next life. So sometimes we try to understand every action, every vipaka. It is impossible. The Buddha says there are 4 things that is just unthinkable. They call it achintyanis. And one of the 4 is actually how the results of karma actually works. It says that it takes only the mind of a Buddha to fully understand how karma works in its entire way. So that's the complexity of karma. Now, in the Madhyama Agama, this is in the Chinese Agama, it has got an explanation of 4 reasons why a person who performs an evil actions is reborn in the heavens. And here in the Madhyama Agama, the text explains that because this person already suffered the effects of his bad action in his present life. So he has already exhausted all the bad effects of his past life. Or the effects are about to ripen only after the rebirth. Maybe after his reborn, it ripens in his next rebirth. Or he has done good deeds prior to the bad conduct. So as I said, intermittently, and he had right view at the time of death. So the Madhyama Agama which has got the same sutta by the same name, gives these 4 reasons why someone who has performed bad actions, apparently he is reborn in a heavenly realm. Okay? So karma, in brief, we have to see that all bad actions, all unwholesome actions has the potential or seed of unwholesome actions. So the Buddha has already debunked the belief of one of the 4 mystics who say that there's no such thing as bad actions, because he saw someone performing bad actions and then is reborn in a wholesome state. So he says there's no such thing as bad action. But the Buddha says no, because karma is the potential. It's like a seed. Every action that we perform is a seed. It's a question of when it ripens. Because we only see partial truth. So when we see a person who has performed unwholesome actions, and we see him, like even in this very life itself, seems to be enjoying the good life, we only see partial truth of it. Right? Likewise, a good action, he has the potential or seed of unwholesome results. Okay? So I just want to conclude with a brief explanation of the complexities of karma by Buddha Ghosha, who is the 5th century commentator. This is from the Visuddhimagga, you can see, right? Here, Buddha Ghosha says, here there's no single or multiple result of any kind from a single cause, nor a single result from multiple causes, but only multiple results from multiple causes. So for the Blessed One, for the Buddha, employs one representative cause and result when it is suitable for the sake of elegance in instruction, like in the Jalan Kammavibhaṅga Sutta, Sutta 135, we discussed last week, and to suit the idiosyncrasies of those susceptible to being taught. So in Sutta 135, Jalan Kammavibhaṅga Sutta, the previous week, Buddha was talking to the Brahmin youth, all right, Subha. So Subha could understand in that context. So he explains cause and effect in that context, because it is suitable, as Buddha Ghosha says, suitable for the sake of elegance in instruction. But in reality, karma is much, much more complex. Okay? So, in conclusion, this is what the Blessed One said. The Venerable Ananda joyfully approved of the Blessed One's words. So that ends the sutta. So we have 21 paragraphs. So as I mentioned in my previous talks, please refer to the actual translation by Bhikkhu Bodhi and Venerable Nyanamoli to get the exact translation, because what I have done in this brief 45 minutes talk is to paraphrase many of what has been translated by Bhikkhu Bodhi and Bhikkhu Nyanamoli in the text. So please read the actual text, and my slides here hopefully will be of some help to explain the actual text itself. So with that, let us do a prayer on the 4 sublime states. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings never be separated from happiness, and may they be without suffering. And may all sentient beings be equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. So with that, thank you very much for listening to the Dhamma, and may you always be well and happy. I think we have about 25 minutes maybe for some Q&A. So if you have any questions, please.
Yes, Brother Benny, we have a question from Eng Sin Zhao on FB. He or she asks, the wording there in your slides and the sutta, the good person who goes to hell might be because he holds wrong view during the time of his death. So how about secular Buddhists who holds the view that there's no karma, no rebirth, and this is actually the view of the Buddha? But due to cultural contamination, such teachings are found in the sutta. But these secular Buddhists are good in practicing their morality and meditation, but I didn't attain to jhanas or stream winner. Would they go to hell for having wrong views? Also, the same question for good Christians. For they have wrong view due to their belief in Christianity or basically any other religion other than Buddhism.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, strictly from the Buddhist point of view, right views is very important. Right, it is so important that in the Noble Eightfold Path, it is stated as the first. Right views and right thoughts. And in many discourses, the Buddha talks about the importance of right views. So, like for example, in the Salayaka Sutta, which is one of the suttas we will discuss subsequently, the Buddha also mentioned the importance of right views. And in the Brahmajala Sutta, which is the first discourse of the long discourses, the Buddha even talks about 62 different types of wrong views. So from here, we can gauge that the importance of views are pertinent in the Buddhist perspective. Now, this concept of secular Buddhists, all right, it is very much something very contemporary. I agree, all right, and there are also a lot of many people who have no idea or no knowledge about the Dhamma. So of course, from the Buddhist point of view, such persons will be reborn in an unfortunate situation, especially if they also break the precepts. They don't follow the precepts. But to have wrong views, I think the concept of views is that, for example, one of the wrong views is to hold the view that there's no such things as karma, that there's no cause and effect. All right, there's no cause and effect. Yeah.
I see. Thank you, brother. And also for the last part of his question, how about for good Christians, like Christians or Muslims? What would happen to them, because they do have they do good things, but they do not have the right belief?
Yeah. So from the Buddhist perspective, all right, it's not possible for me to make a statement what happens to Christians and Muslims or Jews or Hindus after they die. But from the Buddhist perspective, doing good deeds is important, but good deeds by itself is insufficient. Right views are equally important, right? So that is why it is said that to be born as a human being is a precious opportunity. And to be born as a human being, to be able to come in contact with the Dhamma is even more important, because it is only when we are in touch with the Dhamma that we are able to know what is right views, what is wrong views. Then we will be guided, right, by what is considered as right views and wrong views. So maybe from the Buddhist perspective, a person may be a Christian, maybe a Muslim, maybe a Jew in this life, but because he has cultivated a lot of wholesome actions, even in this life, he has got no right views in terms from the Buddhist perspective, because as Buddhists, we believe that they will be, after death, they will be reborn. They may have, because of the good seeds that they have cultivated, they may have the opportunity to be in touch with the Dhamma in the subsequent life. All right. For example, we have heard about the stories about, for example, Christian priests who subsequently became Buddhist monks in this life itself. All right. So how do we explain that? So, in this life, they are Christians, but, after some time, when the ripening, when the karma fruit ripens, they have the opportunity to come in contact with the Dhamma. Then they listen to the Dhamma and they find it, it makes so much sense. So then they cultivated good, right views. Okay, so it is possible, because in Buddhism, we're not talking of just one life, we're talking of many, many lives. Right? So in this life, next life, future lives, past lives, and so on. Okay.
I see. All right. Thank you so much, brother. Hi, guys, brothers and sisters. Any questions, feel free to ask in the comments, or maybe if you are joining us on Zoom, you can unmute yourself to ask the question. Maybe just raise up your hand. Ask any related questions. All right. The keyword being related to today's topic. Actually, if nobody's asking, brother, I have a question over here that has been submitted earlier. The question asks, what are some of the common misconceptions that people have about karma in your experience teaching for so long? What are the usual misconceptions that people will have?
Well, I think the most common misconception people have is that everything that happens to us, especially the bad things, happens due to our kamma. All right. For example, if we strike a lottery, we finally get the job, get the dream job that we've been aspiring for, or we married the person that we have always wanted to, we said, thank God. All right. But if we are hit by a disaster, we lost our job, or we lost money in the stock market, we say, oh, that's my bad karma. Right? So so we tend to attribute the unfortunate things, the negative things to karma. All the good things, we say, oh, thank God, it's not due to karma. But the other thing is, of course, to believe that everything that happens today is due to our past karma. All right? The Buddha, in many of his courses, also explains that that past karma is just one of the possible factors for what we experience here and now. It could also be due to our present karma. So it's not always due to past karma. Okay. Maybe the other misconception is that every action that we do, even unintentional action, is karma. But from the Buddha's teachings, especially in the Nibbedika Sutta, the Buddha makes it very clear that it's only intentional action that constitutes karma. It's intentional action through body, speech, or mind that constitutes karma. So the Buddha makes it very clear in the Nibbedika Sutta. So I think these are some of the misconceptions people have in my experience.
I see. Thank you, Brother Benny. All right. We also have another question from Facebook from Brother Chiam S.A. Thank you for your question, Brother Chiam. He asks, in practice, can one deliberately, to some extent, shape the timing of the ripening of one's unwholesome vipaka, except, of course, the unavoidable, extremely heavy weightage of unwholesome karma?
Again, if we look at the many suttas that the Buddha have taught, the Buddha talks about how we are able to, I'll just use very, very loosely this word, dilute. For example, we do a lot of wholesome karma, we are able to dilute the unwholesome karma from that we perform. And likewise, if we do a lot of wholesome karma, we are able to also dilute the unwholesome vipaka that arises, or the results that arises. Now, in one of the discourses called the Lonapala Sutta, or the salt crystal discourse, the Buddha gave the simile, like, for example, you have a glass of water with a cube of salt in it. If you drink that glass of water, what happens? The water tasted very salty. But if you put that glass of water with that cube of salt into a basin of clean water, and if you drink that water from the big basin, then you realize that the taste of salt is no longer there. But it does not mean that there's no more salt. So basically, the clear water has already diluted all the saltiness in that cube of salt. So likewise, that is why the Buddha always encouraged us to perform wholesome actions, because we never know when the unwholesome actions that we perform in the past, which we can't do anything about because it has already happened in the past. So we do not know when those unwholesome actions will bear fruit, will ripen, will become, as Chiam says, vipaka. Vipaka means the results. So we do not know when. But if consistently, at least in this life, we have been performing wholesome actions, wholesome karmic actions, then even if the unwholesome actions in the past, which previously had not had the opportunity to ripen, but ripens in this very life itself, we have a store of wholesome karma which can, again, to use the word very loosely, cushion or dilute the unwholesome vipaka, the unwholesome action, or the unwholesome results that ripens. Sometimes you hear stories about about a terrible accident, or like a plane crash, out of 300 over people, you find that five people survive, right? So one way of explaining this could be this person have a rich store of wholesome karma, which was able to prevent the destructive karma from ripening. I mentioned just now about the 4 functions of karma. When we are reborn, there is the reproductive karma. The karma that sustains our life is a supportive karma. But there will always be counteractive karma. So we have a lot of wholesome karma that we perform in this very life itself. So whatever counteractive karma that arises because of our past unwholesome actions, the wholesome karma that we have in this very life itself, the present karma, will be able to kind of, as I said loosely, cushion or dilute those unwholesome karma from ripening. So meritorious deeds are very, very important. Good actions are called kusala, wholesome actions. But because of wholesome actions generate what is called merits. Brother Chiam talks about meritorious deeds. So it generates what is called kusala. Kusala actions, wholesome actions generate what is called punya. Punya are merits. So the more merits that we have in this life, the more we will be able to support our existence. All right? The little punya that we have, the little merits that we have in this life, then you find that all the destructive karma, the counteractive negative karma that we perform in the past, we are creating conditions for them to arise easily. Okay? So I hope that sorry, it's a little bit long, but I hope that explains it.
No worries, no worries. We appreciate your sharing, Brother Benny. And Brother Chiam, I hope that Brother Benny's answer is able to answer your question. We have another question here. Brother Benny, can you elaborate further and give examples of right views and wrong views in the context of your teaching today? Thanks.
Well, it's not my teaching today. I'm just sharing the Buddha's teachings. I mean, in no capacity to give any of you any teachings, right? So, okay, what is the difference between right views and wrong views? So, right views in Pali is called samma ditti, right? Samma. Samma, the word is perfect. That means it is perfect for us to practice our spiritual path. So sometimes when we think in terms of right and wrong, we think in a very dualistic way. Oh, this is right, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is right, and so on. So the word samma ditti, just like the word samma sambuddha, the perfectly enlightened being. So when the Buddha used the word samma ditti, perfect views or right views, what he meant is that when one understands and realizes that there is such a thing as karma, that's the most important thing. Yeah? Right views. The views about karma is the most important. In other words, that there are consequences to our actions. There are consequences to our actions. There are results to our actions. And the results may take place immediately, may take place in the next life, or may take place subsequent lives. Okay? So good actions or good karma or kusala karma, wholesome actions have got results. So that is right views. Okay, so it's a view about karma. That's the most important. Now, the other aspects of right view is to have a view about the Four Noble Truths. All right, so that's from the Buddhist text. In other words, the right view that the nature of existence, the characteristics of existence is permanent, is unsatisfactory and non-self, right? That everything that we can experience, we can feel through our 6 senses is subject to change. It's not permanent. It's subject to change. Anicca, subject to change. And because all phenomena is subject to change, they are unsatisfactory. We want things to remain the way it is. We want happiness to always remain the way it is. But that's the nature of happiness, that it is always in a state of flux. It's never the same at one point. It is always subject to change. And also the view that there's nothing, there's the concept of non-self, the concept of there's nothing permanent. Because nothing is permanent, there's suffering, and there's non-self, anatta, the concept of insubstantiality. So this, when one subscribes to this, one is said to have right views. So wrong views will be the reverse. Okay, as I said, there are many teachings on what constitutes wrong views. To believe that there's no such thing as karma, that's wrong view. Okay, to believe that it is all right to harm animals, to harm other living creatures, that is wrong view. All right, or to believe that we all have a soul, that when we pass away, when we die, this soul will be reborn in the, will merge with Godhead. That is considered as wrong views. Okay, so there are different aspects of what the Buddha explains as right views and wrong views. Okay, and if you are interested, I think there's the discourse called the Brahmajala Sutta, which is the first discourse in the book of long sayings in the Dikha Nikaya. There the Buddha explains the 62 different types of wrong views. Right? So if you read that, then you have a very detailed understanding of what constitutes wrong views from the Buddhist perspective. Okay.
I see. Thank you, Brother Benny. And we have time for one final question. So, brothers and sisters, if you have more questions that you would like to ask, do continue to ask them. We will take note of them and we will ask them in next week's session with Brother Benny. So, for the final question, we have, if someone has the wrong view and does not believe in karma, and you like to help him by doing meritorious deeds in his name, but had to lie about the good deed as that will make him create more bad karma with his speech, should one do this action to help him?
Well, there are many parts to this question. If someone has a wrong view and not believe in karma, right? If he has a wrong view, obviously he doesn't believe in, well, one of the wrong views is that he does not believe in karma, okay? But you want to help him by doing meritorious deed in his name. Well, in Buddhism, I think in the teachings, we always say that we can't really do meritorious deeds on behalf of another person. Of course, there's another topic on the sharing of merits, transfer of merits. We don't have time to talk about that. But basically, Buddhists are not encouraged. We are not taught to lie about the good deed, all right? As that will make him create more bad karma with his speech. Yeah, so definitely it is not good to lie about good deeds. Not too sure if I understand the second part of the question well, but had to lie about the good deed, as that will make him create more bad karma with his speech. Should one do this action to help him? Well, as far as one is concerned, one can, if we are trying to help someone to do good deeds, all right, and that person does not believe in karma, then one need not talk to him about karma. One can ask him, for example, not to harm other living beings. One can pose a question: Do you want to be harmed? Do you want to be hurt by another living being? Answer is no. So because you do not want to be harmed by another living being, so you do not harm another living being. Just as you do not want to have pain and suffering, you do not want to cause pain and suffering to another living being. Now, if that person can understand that, then he will refrain from harming living beings. Okay? So that is one aspect of not performing the unwholesome actions. So if he does that, that is good. Okay? If we can accept that, then one can go the next step by not only encouraging him to abstain from not harming other living beings, one can then even encourage him to do some good deeds. Okay? So one can encourage him, for example, to help to donate to the poor, or to volunteer his services, in an old folks' home or in a charity, So one can encourage him to do meritorious deeds without trying to talk to him about the law of karma if he doesn't believe that. Okay? So hopefully that by so doing good deeds, by abstaining from unwholesome deeds, he would perform wholesome actions. Okay? So that is that much that we can do. Right? But if after a while, when he realized that there's the importance of meritorious, the importance of doing wholesome actions, the importance of abstaining from unwholesome actions, then we can slowly introduce that there is this concept called karma, there is this concept called cause and effect. Again, if early on someone talks about secular Buddhism, so if people are not accustomed to hearing words like karma, so we can always talk about cause and effect, about causality, about the importance of you reap as you sow, So there are some very secular ways that we can talk to people about the Buddha's teachings. Okay, remember the Buddha also says about teaching the Dhamma in the vernacular. All right, we don't have to use very technical Pali words to explain Buddhism. All right, if we want someone to be good, we want someone to perform wholesome actions, then we can arouse in the person's mind the implication of rationality. Is it rational that we should not harm other people? Because just as we do not want ourselves to be harmed, yeah, it's rational, so we will not harm other people. So by that action of ours, this person then he abstains from performing unwholesome actions. And hopefully the next stage is we can get him to do something wholesome. Okay? Yeah, we don't have time, but there's one last question here. Maybe I'll just quickly. He says, during the Brother Benny, Japan killed many civilians. Well, not Japan killed many civilians. I think soldiers during Imperial Japan killed many civilians during wartime. Can we say bad karma will fall on them? Well, there's a complexity of karma. If you have killed living beings, right, karma will definitely ripen. It may ripen in this life, it may ripen in future life, we do not know. But karma will definitely ripen. So there's no running away from karma, especially you perform very, very, what is called garuka karma, heavy karma. Okay, so karma is also explained in terms of intensity, high intensity, low intensity. Killing human beings, right, and killing an ant, both are forms of killing, but the intensity is different. The weight is different. Why? Because to kill a human being, can you imagine the thoughts, the intention that goes into your mind, how to kill a living being? To kill an ant, to kill a mosquito, how much scheming and thinking do you need before you crush an ant? So because the intention is different. It's not so much that because ants, the life of an ant well, in a way, is also the case, because a human being, that you kill, he has the opportunity to become a Buddha, all right? Where an ant may not have the opportunity to be a Buddha as an ant, but the ant will have to take rebirth subsequently, in other life forms, okay? So, well, that's the other complexity about karma, right? But definitely, if one kill living beings, the fruits of one's actions will bear fruits. It will bear fruits, okay? I think that's about time. Thank you very much.
That's about time. Thank you so much, Brother Benny, for the timely and wonderful Dhamma sharing. Now, on behalf of Babs and all the participants, I would like to invite everyone to express their gratitude to Brother Benny by saying sadhu 3 times together. Now, if we could everyone please turn on your video? Everyone, please turn on your video.
We speak. Buddy.
Study.
Thank you, Brother Benny. Can everyone turn on your video, because we would like to take a group photo with Brother Benny as well. Right, I'll just give it like a minute for everyone to turn on their video, if you don't mind, Brother Benny. And to all our friends joining us on Facebook and YouTube, if you want to be in a group photo next week, please join us on Zoom. That would be much easier. All right, I see most of us turn on the video. Maybe we wait another 20 seconds. All right, so okay, I think that's enough time. Maybe the rest cannot turn on the video, so maybe we put our palms together and we take a photo together. 1, 2. All right, one more. 1, 2. All right. Now leave your video and your mic on, we will ring the bell and say sadhu to Brother Benny one more time. Our sadhu. Once again, thank you so much, Brother Benny. And to all our participants, indeed, we have come to the end of our session. So thank you for joining us. And do remember to join us again next week for our 5th session with Brother Benny. Thank you and have a pleasant week. See you all next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.